In business, I learned very quickly that doesn't translate directly, where if I just perform and I do well, then other people are just going to pick up and follow. It's much more hands-on. There's much more empathy involved and things like that.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of The Closing Table. And with us today joining, we have Erik Wright of Social House. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate having me on.
Hey, good. Want to talk a little bit about your past and your previous experience as a realtor. So let's start off with you graduating from Madonna University with cum laude honors, by the way. Now, I've spoken with previous real estate agents, and a few of us, we talk about how institutional education isn't necessarily required in real estate besides getting your license. But I want to talk about how academics have been successful to your career or have contributed to the success in your career. Can you speak on that, please?
Yeah, so while the grades wouldn't necessarily be indicative of this, I was never a good student. I always, I was always the kid that was doing homework in class, during class, before it was due, all that kind of stuff. So more of what I got out of college specifically, and just I think academics in general, is I played baseball in college. I had to work throughout college, and I was taking, 14 to 17 credits every semester. So you actually made a comment in a good friend of mine, Matt Talbot's video as well, when you were interviewing him about the habits that you create and those types of things that you really instill within yourself, trying to balance all these different things going on in your life. That's really what
Correct.
I took from college personally, mostly at my own fault. I probably could have got a lot more out of it from an academic standpoint, but going to class and school was never my forte by any means. I would always get very bored very quickly. But
Really?
Needless to say, I definitely took a lot from it in terms of learning how to balance things and organize my day. And that's the one thing I preach to everybody nowadays, is the value of time and efficiency. And that really allowed me to hone in on that and figure out how to capitalize on it.
Man, you know what? Yeah, I think that's been a common consensus with, most of the people who've been to college. But, man, I got to say, it just didn't rub off on me the same way, because I was slouching off in college, man. I didn't pick up too many good habits. I mean, the only habit I could say I picked up from college was radio. I sharpened up my communication skills, and I was a communications major. But I don't know. I feel like I could have done that anyway. But it's always interesting to see that, for the most part, we all grab like that discipline, those type of habits from just going to college. And transitioning to habits and discipline, you spoke on the fact that you played baseball, and I saw you played other sports growing up. You talk about what type of mentality translated from sports into your profession now as a realtor, if any.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of ties into the discipline, the time management, those factors that naturally lead to somebody becoming a successful entrepreneur. Growing up, from the time probably I was 5 years old, I was playing sports year round, playing soccer, t-ball, all that stuff starting out, and then once I really started to grow and hit like 8 or 9 years old, I was football, baseball, basketball, all the way throughout high school, and ended up playing baseball in college, but.
Nice.
Had a lot of great coaches, not necessarily from the standpoint of educating me to a deep extent from an athletic aspect. Like baseball, for instance, I was lucky. I was very naturally gifted in that sense. And so, I didn't get a lot of coaching growing up for pitching, for instance, because I could just go out and throw the baseball pretty well. But I learned so much from my coaches in terms of just discipline, how to treat people, how to talk to people, things along those lines, where when you're constantly dealing with adversity, I got injured pretty bad in my senior year of high school, had to kind of push through that and still be there for the team and things of that nature. So I learned a lot of things in terms of just overcoming adversity. And, I was never that kid that was inherently just the number one guy. I always had to work for it. I always had to be the hardest working person. And so that was something I actually had to learn and pivot a bit when I became an entrepreneur and a leader in business, because I was always that kid that just, I worked very hard. And so I could lead by example in that sense. But in business, I learned very quickly that doesn't translate directly, where if I just perform and I do well, that other people are just going to pick up and follow. It's much more hands-on. There's much more empathy involved and things like that. So I definitely had to take my athletic background and the mindset I had playing sports and really pivot a lot when I started leading people on a business and entrepreneurial level, because it was a totally different type of leadership, totally different type of conversations that were being had, and people are just motivated in very different ways when it's not an athletic, physical, performing type thing. So,
right.
So yeah, I definitely took a lot from the sports in terms of discipline and time management. And outside of that, just kind of learning how to overcome adversity and keep pushing through and stay positive, and, just the results that come when you work hard. There's no easier way to look at it than physical, improvements. So.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. I love to ask people how their previous experience, previous life, careers, endeavors tie into what they do now, and especially with sports. I mean, you can make a sports analogy with almost anything, but to take the mindset of hard work, discipline, sportsmanship in relation to how you treat people, that's all like key things that you can definitely translate into different areas of your life. So that's a great answer. I'm glad you responded like that. I'm gonna try to keep things sports themed from here on out. I'm gonna see how creative I can be. We're gonna see. So let's speak on your current team, your current brand, Social House, correct? Social House.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm gonna be honest. I saw Social House. I'm like, what is Social House? Like, this doesn't seem like a real estate company. When I hear Social House, I thought of this is either a cool place to hang out or a cool place to be a part of online. But you do have a presence online. So speak on what is Social House? Who is Social House for? Go into that, please.
Yeah, so when I got into real estate back in, I want to say it was like mid to late 2014. And the whole reason why I got into it is because the first thing I realized, I was in my first job out of college, is the average age demographic in our industry is about 55 years old. Mm-hmm. So in Michigan, average agents are around my parents' age. My parents just turned 60 recently. And so what that kind of triggered for me was just a curiosity to say, okay, well, I know that, real estate agents obviously do pretty well financially, the ones that are successful anyways, and started to dive into it and saw zero presence on social media really across the board for many real estate agents. However, I was personally very, very invested, just as a side hustle, into learning more about SEO, learning more about Facebook and Instagram at the time. And so I saw a huge opportunity to take my background, my skills. I worked at a tech startup for a little while, kind of integrate the technology and social media background into this real estate business to essentially market and advertise and grow an actual business for myself. And luckily, over the course of 4 years, that ended up coming to fruition and working out pretty well, to where I was able to start my own brokerage, which was Social House, in January 2019. So nice. The idea really started for the name. I was trying to just come up with things that were built around social media, trying to integrate that word somehow. And subconsciously, there's actually, to your point, there's actually a bar that was in Dallas, Texas, called Social House. And it was our go-to like spot, on Sundays for brunch or whatever it was. Whenever I was down there, I had a condo down there for several years. And so by no means was it like a direct proponent of like coming up with a name, but I know subconsciously that name was in my head. And it really fit the vibe of kind of like what type of culture we want to build. It was super laid back, like this is me, hoodie, beanie, whatever it may be. Very laid back. It was a really nice, like free flowing. It was like an indoor outdoor vibe where all the walls were open, and so it just kind of like fit in with like the atmosphere we want to build here at Social House, which is authenticity. You can be yourself. You can be confident in whoever you are, whatever you're passionate about. There's thousands of people that have the exact same interests, the exact same passions, and that's where we take to social media to leverage those tools to basically be able to present yourself and your brand in whichever way you like. And then over time, if you do it consistently enough, which is what I've been doing for 8.5 years, you're going to start to build up a just organic brand across the board in your local area, because of the content, because of your consistent performance on social. And that's really what our vision and mission as a Social House is, to take individual agents and build up their personal brand. versus I think most brokerages, and there's nothing wrong with this by any means. These guys have been extremely successful in doing this, but most brokerages are very top down in their thinking, meaning that they think if they market, ABC brokerage enough, it's going to trickle down and benefit their agents. Whereas I have the opposite thought process of saying, I want to build up each individual agent at our company to teach them how to build their brand, where truthfully, if they were to leave ever, their brand is going to follow them. And that's what I want to enable people to do, is basically build up a brand to where no matter where they go, they can be successful, and then it's on us to create a culture and give them all the tools and resources so they don't want to leave. But needless to say, we're giving them all the tools to where they could, like if you were, in radio, before when you were in radio, it's like they were giving you all the tools to succeed no matter where you went. And I think that's a good leader. That's a good, boss. That's a good broker. That's a good, whatever you want to call it, is if they're actually enabling you to be successful elsewhere. And that's really what we're, focused on, is building up people's brand, give them the tools to learn social media and leverage it to build their real estate business and ultimately acquire leads.
Oh, nice. Love to hear that. You spoke on consistency, which we will get into. Give me a second. I want to speak on that because you use that word a lot. And you spoke on Facebook ads and stuff. So we're going to get into that. Give me 1 second. But let's talk about your current team market. Where is your current market right now? Let's just let the people know. Where do you currently serve?
Yeah, so our office at the moment is based out of downtown Detroit, Midtown technically. But nice. We're actually all over the place in terms of Southeast Michigan. We have agents out in Ann Arbor. We have agents downriver. We have agents in the Brighton and Howell area. We have agents as far north as, Washington Township. So we're all over the map as far as where we serve. We have almost 40 agents on our team now. So we're pretty well diversified in terms of the markets that we address. I personally do most of my work I grew up in Canton. So Plymouth, Canton area, Northville, Novi, Livonia. I recently moved to the Royal Oak, Birmingham area. So starting to tap into that market a little bit more. But yeah, as a company, we're all over the map. So if anybody's got, needs or anything, we have somebody that we can send them over to, which makes it very nice and kind of opens up our marketing capabilities pretty vastly because we can touch on pretty much anywhere.
Man, the fact that you're in Midtown Detroit, like I used to work at a, I don't even want to say, but a popular mortgage lending company in downtown Detroit. I used to work there, and I was down. Yeah, I know. I used to work there when things were building up, and I'm talking about the view was beautiful. Like you were part of everything coming up. Can you speak on like how you've seen Detroit build up since you've been there? Just growing up in that area, like the downtown real estate in Midtown. Can you just speak on that, please?
Oh yeah, I love Detroit. I grew up in Canton up until I want to say 24, 25 years old. I moved down to Detroit around probably 2015. So I lived down there 7, 8 years before I built a house and got out of the city. But I actually moved in. Those townhomes are across from LCA. They got like the green trim, the Woodward. I should know what they're called. I lived there 3 years, but there are those townhomes directly across from LCA where you've got like sport and social and whatnot. If you could throw a rock out there and hit the side of one of them. So I actually moved in there right before they started building LCA. So, but I lived down there a few years before that, just in different locations. But needless to say, the reason I say that, it was so cool to see from the day they started LCA. That's when I think a lot of the growth really started to be ignited. And then of course COVID, put a hold on some of that. But yeah, it was so cool seeing like the energy in that city start to grow and escalate. And that's really what kept me down there. Like for instance, my business partner, she always laughed at me because every single day on my way home, I wouldn't go straight home. I'd do a lap around Campus Martius downtown.
You have every single day. It's so much going on. Like, oh my God.
It's just like, and people would always ask me why I do that. And it just gave me so much energy because there's no city like Detroit in the United States, in my opinion.
Just hearing it is giving me energy, man.
Yeah. And when you really think about it, like Detroit is one of the biggest cities in the United States, but it's probably one of the easiest cities, in my opinion, as an entrepreneur to start something, build something, and become successful. And the reason I say that is because you don't see people, like Dallas is a good example. I was down there for several years and it's like not full time, just I had a place down there where everybody's moving to Dallas to build something. nobody's really moving to Detroit from other cities to build something. So you're essentially,
Correct.
and I'm not saying nobody, but there's a very small percentage, I would imagine, that are moving here to build something.
Right.
And with that being said, your competition is really concentrated to people that
Mm-hmm.
are from here. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a better competitive landscape for people to like come in, start something, grow something. The people in Detroit, it's just different, like they're you walk by
Yeah,
somebody
man.
walk by somebody on the street and you say, what you do, how you doing, or whatever, which I say hi to everybody. If you look at me, I'll say hi to you. And everybody says hello. Everybody says, I'm good. How are you? You go down to some other cities like LA and stuff like that. And it's like, they give you a dirty look like, what? Like,
Yep.
who is this person? Why are they talking to me? You know? So there's just something about it. But yeah,
Yeah,
seeing the growth of the city has been incredible. I'm excited to see what happens, over the next 10 years. I hope that things keep
hmm
keep growing down there, and we don't see
Yeah,
any type
man.
of recession or anything that stunts the growth. But yeah, all things considered, man, it was a great experience living down there.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. I saw on your social media headline, you had a formula. Your formula was professional video tour plus professional listing photos plus drone photos and videos plus paid Facebook ads plus listing with social house equal more money. Now, I feel like there's no barriers to entries for someone to do professional video, drone photos and videos, etc. So what makes your formula different from anyone else's?
So it's funny because I read that question when you sent it over beforehand, because I was and the first thing that came to mind, and I was like, you're right. There's nothing proprietary about it. There's no secret sauce, and that's very true. There's nothing stopping
Mm-hmm.
anybody from doing that. The problem is that most people just don't do it. So like
Mm.
that's really why I got into real estate. All these resources are out there for us to use, for everybody to use. And I'll be the first one to say, like, I'm extremely open and transparent about everything we do at Social House. All of our workshops that we host, like on social media and how to use it, they're all public. We open them up to agents that aren't at our company. We just had a workshop the last week of January, and like probably 20 to 30% of the agents that were there don't even work for us. Because I love sharing knowledge, and the logic behind that too is that I want every agent to start duplicating what we do, because I believe that competition is good, and what ends up happening is the more agents start saying, okay, these are the things I need to be doing, the more they're going to start leveraging social media, the more that consumers, so buyers or sellers, are going to start to see these things more and more and more. And then inherently, what's going to happen? They're going to start to say, when I hire a real estate agent to sell my house, they need to be doing these things. And then over
Mm-hmm.
time, what you're going to see is they're going to start to go and say, all right, so I need my agent to do these 5 things. Who is the best at it? And then that's where my hope is that, since we've been, the most consistent, in my opinion, at least in Southeast Michigan, with social media, with building a presence and building a brand on there, that they're
Mm-hmm.
inherently going to start to say social house. It may not be Erik Wright, but it's going to be social house. And
Social
then they're going to
house,
go,
yeah.
which agent at social house serves my area, which agent at social house fits my, who I am, who I want to work with. And so yeah, while the formula by no means is not proprietary, there's no secret sauce, nothing like that. It's really just a matter of getting people to do it. And then the more the awareness and exposure starts to build up, the more you're going to see more people adopt it, and the more you're going to start to see consumers expect it. And so that's
Yeah.
really where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. One thing about that
Thank you.
formula that I want to talk about is the paid Facebook ads, because you could do organic Facebook postings and things of that nature, but it's something about the paid Facebook ads that makes a difference. So I've run Facebook ads as a small business owner, and I haven't gotten the return on income and investment, I'm sorry, that I would have liked, but I'm still not giving up. Can you speak on your consistency in Facebook, or and also other platforms that you do invest your time in that you've gotten success from?
Yeah, so Facebook's an interesting beast. And the reason that I
Yes, it
say that
is.
is because it's like I have on there almost 40,000 followers on my business page on Facebook. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean anything. I could throw something
No.
on there and not boost it, and it might get in front of a couple thousand people, maybe on a good day. And the reason for that is Facebook's algorithms. They want to incentivize businesses to spend money, right? And most people don't spend money on there because it's not, to probably to your point, it's not an immediate thing. It's not like you go spend $500 and you start making thousands of dollars just like that.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that I have to like kind of preach to our agents on a daily basis where, to give you an example, our average agent last year at Social House, our average commission check we paid out was just under $8,000. And so the typical return conservatively for Facebook is around 5x.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely it's going to be closer to 8 to 10x, whatever your investment is. So if you spend $1, you're probably going to make 8 to 10, but conservatively, if you spend $1, you're going to make $5. And so what's very difficult to get people to really fully comprehend is, based on that average commission check of about $8,000, you would need to spend roughly $1,500 on Facebook. So if you're only spending $500 a month, let's call it, and I don't only is probably not the best word to use. That's a good budget for Facebook to start out. It's going to take you 3 months just to get one $300,000 buyer, right? But if you convert that, if you get one $300,000 buyer and convert it, you just made, in real estate, at least with 3%, you just made $9,000, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that return's there. It's just most agents, most people logically, when they're spending money and they're not seeing an immediate return, they deviate and they go somewhere else. They quit. They go to something that's tried and true and proven, which social media is still so new that there's not enough people successful from it that people just trust it inherently, like they do direct mail and cold calls and these other mediums. But if you just stay patient and stay consistent with it, it doesn't matter how much money you spend. I was broke as hell when I started this. I was 24, had no money, had a bunch of student loans. I probably had a $2,000 credit card where I started out spending $5 a day, on ads. And then just incrementally started to grow that to where now I've spent almost probably $900,000 on Facebook ads since I got into real estate.
Whoa, $900,000 in Facebook ads?
Yeah, Facebook, very, very small percentage of that is going to be Instagram, but about probably 95% of it's Facebook ads. So over the last 8 years.
Wow.
And it's because it works. It's one of those, like, are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes.
So he's my guy. Like he's literally the reason why social media is even in my life to the extent it is.
I saw you speak on him. I saw you. Yeah.
Yeah. Back in 2011, I saw one of his Inc. 500 keynotes or whatever. And this was before social media was even a thing. And like everything this guy was saying, I was like, God, that just makes sense. And one thing he always preached early on is, when you find something that works and you believe in it, go all in. Don't just keep, incrementally increasing it. Like, just go all in. If you believe in it, like, especially at my age at the time, even now, like, we're young, like, we can fail. If we fail, what's the worst that happens?
Correct. Yeah.
It's like, I've been broke. It's not, I didn't grow up with any money. I've been broke. Like, I'm not scared to go broke. I know what that life is like. It's okay. It's not that bad. I can figure it out.
That's a
So
fact.
it's like, why not go all in? I don't have any kids. I'm not married. It's like, I can take risks, especially back then. And so I just went all in on it. After I figured out it worked, I started to see the results and the leads come in, and I was like, this works. I just need to keep putting my foot on the gas. And as money became available to me, I was just dumping it in. I was in a ton of debt up until probably like 2018, because I was just betting on myself, and I was dumping every dollar I made back into the business until now I hit the point where it's like I could probably stop running ads and still sell $20 million a year, because I built up a big enough brand for myself because of that investment.
Ooh, talk about it. Nice. All right. Not making the cut. Trying to keep it sports themed. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. I saw in one of your previous interviews, you said something about before the leads reach your agents, there's a process where they have to get qualified, and it's like they just message. It's either through text message or messenger. They don't really speak to anybody until like they're already qualified. So can you talk about how cutting phone calls is making your process more efficient, if it does, or am I seeing it or saying it wrong?
So most of our business or leads are generated through not lead forms. So there's a couple, and there's like basically two different types of ads essentially that you can run on Facebook. You can run the lead form ads where people are actually clicking on something and filling out their information. You got to pick up the phone and call them. Or alternatively, what we do is we just basically advertise active listings in our markets, the markets that our agents work in, whatever it is, and we boost it. And the goal of those boosted posts is for people to comment and inquire about the price. Right. At which point, when they comment inquiring about the price, we send them a direct message saying, hey, Erik, it's listed for $300,000. You think about buying a new home this year? And then from there, when they respond, it gets sent instantaneously because we use a software that does so. And so basically, they get the response in their inbox instantaneously to where their likelihood to respond to that question is very high. And so as soon as they say yes, that's where we start to kind of go through our little qualifying conversation via text/messenger there. And one of the biggest things as far as being qualified is once we get somebody to the point of wanting to get pre-approved, that's where we send an intro text message to our lender with the buyer essentially on a group chat and say, I work with Next Door Lending pretty closely, and Kelly Brusca and Chris Fabot are my two go-tos over there right now. And it's like, I'll send them a message and say, hey, Kelly, Kevin's interested in getting pre-approved for a mortgage. Please set up a good time for you guys to chat. And, please let me know how it goes. And then essentially from there, what we noticed is we started out trying to do email. We started out trying to give Kelly the buyer's number or the buyer Kelly's number. And the conversion was just so low. Whereas as soon as we started implementing text messages, the response rates were way higher. The conversions were way higher. The conversations that continued were way higher. So we just noticed that it was much more effective from a conversion standpoint. And also it just was so nice for the sake of going back and checking notes, checking, how the conversation went. When everything's in writing, it just really makes things so much easier to keep track of and manage. But that is one of my goals this year, though, because I've always hated being on the phone, in terms of talking on the phone, just because I'm always doing something and I'm not good at multitasking in that regard. I'm not good at giving you my attention and working at the same time. So, but I'm really trying this year. That's one of my initiatives this year is to pick up the phone more. So sorry to any agents that you got ignored or didn't get a call back.
I don't feel bad. I usually feel like that too. That's why friends and family mad because I don't reach out because I'm usually always occupied doing things. So I completely get that part. Let's talk about rejections, blocks, things of that nature, setbacks. So how do you deal with rejections and setbacks as a realtor?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. And I'm it's a good and bad thing. I'm very even keel. I don't get excited and I don't get upset. And it's kind of translated into my personal life a little too much. So I'm trying to work on that. But I just kind of have the mentality where it's nothing's done until it's done, and nothing's, broken until you figure out it can't be fixed. So I've always just kind of had this mentality where I don't really get high. I don't really get low, and just kind of keep pushing. And, there's always going to be another client that comes around. There's always going to be another buyer, always going to be another seller, whether it's for your listing, whether it's, just a client you're working with. So kind of just having that mentality to push through, and then just perspective too. I've got my middle brother who's 29 years old. He's severely cognitively impaired. He's like a 1.5-year-old essentially, from an intellect and mental standpoint. And just growing up with, Brandon, who doesn't really have the capability to do anything independently at all. He can't talk, he's nonverbal, and all these things. So when I put everything into perspective, whenever anything does go wrong for me, it's just so easy for me to be like, it's not that bad. And,
that's
just keep on moving through. So that's how I've always kind of been since I was a kid. I've always been very independent and just kind of relied on myself in a lot of ways. I had two amazing parents. But at I was always a very independent kid. I was always a hard worker by myself. I'll be out in the driveway hooping for hours on end growing up as a kid, So I just like kind of being in my little silo and just thinking and working and hooping or playing sports or whatever it was.
Nice, man. Cool. Great perspective too, by the way. You gotta find something to look at the bigger picture sometimes, so that way you don't just drive yourself crazy. I like to talk to myself and say that too. The follow through. Can you talk us through your follow through process after a sale and how you maintain a long-term relationship with your clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of the typical stuff that everybody does, following up on anniversaries and stuff, social media is your best friend, and this isn't just for clients that you're staying in touch with after closing. It's for prospects. It's for, people that you're trying to work with. It's for leads, where whenever I convert, basically start working with somebody, or somebody, expresses interest in working with me to buy or sell a home, I send them a friend request, right? And then boom, we're friends on Facebook. Now, if little Timmy has a good baseball game and they post about it on Facebook, I can like that post. I can congratulate them. I can basically stay engaged with them on a day-to-day basis as often or as frequently as I need to stay in
Yep.
front of
Yep.
them, but it's very organic and it's very genuine. And so I'm not selling, I'm not following up saying, hey, think about buying a home every third day. Instead, it's totally different stuff that has nothing to do with real estate that I'm just able to engage and stay in touch with people through
There you
social
go.
media platforms to where my name is staying in front of them. And of course, it's coupled with all the paid ads that probably are being shown on their feed every 25 minutes as well. So that's really, I think, the biggest resource that I use is just the social media aspect of things where I'm able to stay in touch with my current clients, my past clients, my future clients, whoever it may be.
Uh-huh.
Kind of the same, intent that Facebook was created for, just to stay in touch with your network. And that's really what I leverage it for.
Yeah, man. All right. You're saying there's been a change in where people are moving as of recently. If I'm not mistaken, I saw a statistic from the National Association of Realtors that said people used to move within like a 15-mile radius of where they currently stay, which is usually within the same town, but now they're moving like within like 50-mile radius or so. We're seeing a lot of people go from big cities to big cities and suburbs, maybe to small towns and rural areas. In your area, southeastern Michigan, you have the big city, you have rural areas, you have a mixture. Are you seeing certain buyers go to certain areas, move from certain areas? Are you seeing any common patterns there?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I think what's happening in Southeast Michigan is they're running out of land. They're running out of places to build new homes. So what you're starting to see is
Really?
people that want to build new homes. Yeah, I mean, Canton, where I grew up, it's like it's really not much more room to build anything. And so a lot of people, for instance, in Canton are moving out to South Lyon because South Lyon's kind of one of those up and coming areas where it's very, very similar to the Plymouth Canton area in a lot of ways, but it's much more rural. So there's a lot of people
Mm,
moving out there. And then in Plymouth, for instance, like Plymouth and then Birmingham, where I live, it's like now people are just tearing down old bungalows and building there. So I think you're starting to see a lot of people spread out a little bit more, like Pittsfield Township, for instance, around Ann Arbor. Like I see that area being something that's going to be huge in the next 5 to 10 years, just because they can only
okay.
build so much more in Ann Arbor, and Pittsfield's still Ann Arbor
Uh,
schools, which typically is a big driving
true.
force behind people wanting to move. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think I would say South Lyon and Pittsfield Township are probably, at least in our little area, probably two of the areas I see really booming over the next several years, just because they're kind of on the outskirts of those areas that are already doing very well and
Right.
just needing to expand. And then Superior Township's my sleeper. I love Superior Township. It's right between Canton and Ann Arbor. And, as Ann Arbor and Canton both grow and expand out, they're converging on Superior Township. So naturally, I think Superior is going to end up being, a nice little spot for, young people to buy because you can get a really nice house under 400K over there, which sounds crazy to say because
Mm.
that's a lot of money. But,
I
you
know.
know,
Okay.
yeah, it's like nowadays it's hard to say what 400K really even gets you anymore. So it's
I know,
it's
man.
it's a wild thing, growing up when my parents I think their house when they got was like 230 when they bought it in 2001, and now it's damn near over 400, which is mind blowing to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we could talk
crazy.
all day
So
about that. But okay. All right. So when you mentioned price just now, I kind of had my reaction like, "Whoa, that's kind of crazy. I don't know if I could spend that." So I read this survey that gave me some information, but before I give you the information, I kind of want to see based on your experience, what are some common influences that you had to overcome from a potential buyer? Basically, kind of saying, no, I don't think I want to do it because of this or because of whatever factors.
yeah, I think we're in a. I mean, we've been in this market, in my opinion, for the last like 5 years, where people are saying, "I'm going to wait for prices to drop. I'm going to wait for rates to drop, whatever it may be."
Mm,
And if we were smart enough to time this market exactly to where we're making the perfect investment, we'd be a lot richer than we are. Like all of us. And it's like, and what I mean by that is that it's impossible to time the market. You might get lucky and pull the trigger at the right
right.
time. But at the end of the day, I've had some people that 3 years ago told me they wanted to wait till prices dropped and they still haven't pulled the trigger. Now they're like, well, I guess we'll move now. I'm like, well, prices are up 40%. So great timing. It's
Exactly.
like you should have moved when, you wanted to. And granted, some of those people own homes, so they're able to cancel it out a little bit. But
Right, right,
that's
right.
really like the biggest thing I see right now, where it's like, if you look at it from the perspective of interest rates, it's like if rates go down, you can refinance. If they go up, you're glad you bought. If they stay the same, you're glad you bought. There's
Mm-hmm.
really having interest rates being a core driving factor, unless of course it just disqualifies you overall because your payment's too high due to the rates
Right.
being higher. Don't focus on interest rates as much as most people do. That's usually my biggest piece of advice, because get into the house you really want to be in. You can always refinance if rates go down. If rates stay the same or go up, you're glad you bought.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really my biggest piece of advice, is just get into the house you want to be in. It's a mental health thing too. Like, being in a home that you really enjoy living in and coming home to every day is really underrated. I
Yeah,
can
man.
attest to that. Just moving into my new house from a 700 square foot apartment where I was just, like one window, and, definitely wasn't a good vibe in there. So yeah, it really does change the game.
Yeah. See, so the survey said, and you had the exact responses that the survey said. The survey says top 3 reasons that influence buyers to buy, not buy, whatever. Number 3 was employment trends. Number 2 was availability of homes, and number 1 was interest rates. And I always feel like number 1 and number 2 should kind of maybe switch, or whatever the case may be, because availability of homes is probably the key thing. When you find and we preach this all the time here at the closing table, when you find the home that you get when you want and it's available, that's when you should try to hone in and try to get it. No matter, I mean, as long as you have the resources to do it, that's when you should try to hone in and try to get that
Mm-hmm.
home. So yeah, worry about the interest rates later.
Very spot on.
So consistency. I want to talk about consistency being one of your key words. Why is this a key factor to your success?
Yeah, it's something I think yeah, like you mentioned earlier, you hear me say it all the time, and I'm a very big believer that if you consistently do anything, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're a real estate agent, if
Mm-hmm.
if you're starting a podcast, if you're a
Mm-hmm.
candle maker, if you do anything consistently enough and
Mm-hmm.
you actually care about it, and you're inputting all your time and investment, you will be successful.
Correct.
100%. You can make. I think anybody is capable of being an entrepreneur and building a life for themselves. And there's going to be different degrees of success, of course, and it might take
Correct.
longer for some people than others. But if you consistently do anything, you're eventually going to start to see a return, assuming there's
Man.
some degree of a need for it. And so that's why I always preach that, where it's like, if you keep doing it, you're not going to fail. If you keep making content, you may not get a lead from that, those organic videos you're posting for 12 months. But then if you get one client from it, it's going to start to snowball. Over time, you're
Correct.
going to build up a brand for yourself. Over time, you're going to start to, have more conversations, and more conversations typically leads to more conversions. So that's really basically the foundation of my whole business, is just consistency, and just kind of keep trusting yourself and continuing to do what you believe to be the right thing to do. And, over time, you're going to start to see the results of it.
Man, I believe in that, and that's why I want to speak on that with you, because that's one thing that I believe into my core and work ethic, man. That is the one thing that you have control over, your consistency. Like you should commit to doing whatever you want to do on a more frequent basis, and try to block out all distractions. That's your road to success. I mean, everything else will, for the most part, just fall into place as long as you're doing the work, and your work is consistency. I'm just speaking to myself and to the audience, man, because you
Oh,
touched
yeah.
my heart when you said that, man. I can relate to that all way, man.
I love it,
Thank you,
man. Yeah,
Erik.
and like one thing to add real quick too, yeah, of course, is I think most people with consistency, what real estate agents struggle with is they don't know what to do. They don't know how to spend their time. They don't know what to do with their time.
Hello?
They say they don't know how to. Can you hear me?
Erik, you went out.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's work. Yeah, you can't hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah, it was my little my mic was still working, but I'm sure you guys
That's all good.
you can edit that out. But the biggest thing I typically hear from real estate agents is they don't know what to do. They don't know how to spend their time. They don't know how to make content. They don't know how to edit videos. And it's like, go observe, go learn from people that are already doing it. And you don't even have to have an actual interaction with them. Just follow their page. There's so many resources out there on YouTube and social media to learn how to do just about anything you need to know how to do
Correct.
to build a business. So
Right.
yeah. So I mean, I guess the point of saying that is, there's not really an excuse to not be consistent, to not build up a brand, to not, be present on social media. There's ways to learn it. You might have to overcome some insecurities, or, some fears or whatever it is. I had to do
For
the same
sure.
thing.
For
But
sure.
once you do that and you make that first video and you realize that nobody really cares what you look like, how you sound, what you're saying, it really takes a lot of weight off your chest to where like, just go do it and do it a lot and do it frequently and do it consistently.
Man, I couldn't have said it better, Erik, man. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for coming to the closing table with all the gems that you dropped. You want to tell the people, you want to give any last words or tell people how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, you can. Instagram is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. It's Erik, ERIK_social house. Just shoot me a DM if you ever have any questions, whether you're a buyer, seller, or an agent that wants to learn a little more about social media, just let me know.
All right,
I
man.
appreciate you having me on, man. It was great meeting you.
Absolutely, man. It was fun, man. It was fun. We got a little bit over time, man, but I appreciate your time. Thanks again. And for our audience watching on YouTube, thank you again for watching. If you got this far, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Also, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Like, share, hit the 5-star rating, and also subscribe so you can get some of our latest content. Let me leave you with this question also, audience. Why do you follow certain real estate agents on social media? And if you don't follow any real estate agents on social media, have you seen any? Let's talk about it. Just leave your comments below. Other than that, we'll see you next time.